Okay.
Okay.
Now you know you're being recorded. Don't say anything that can be held against you.
Okay.
So Louise is interested, and so that's why we're recording, so we can send that to her. And Cheryl never responded, so I'm not really sure if she's interested. Barb Lashua in St. Lawrence is not interested because she's part-time and she's got a lot on her plate. And then Gretchen had said she would join, but so I don't know if she's maybe having some delay or whatever, but if she doesn't, we can send her the presentation as well. So, and then you, Katie, and then Natalie and I were talking, there might be other people eventually that we want to reach out to, but we want to kind of show you a little bit what the Germans have proposed and then see how we feel about that. And then maybe there might be other regions, and NIATEP might also be interested. And so anyway, do you want to take it from there, Natalie?
Yeah, sure. I just want to say one thing I have learned this morning is that if I ever do have to plan a wedding, I'm calling the two of you. I really think you should go into this together.
We could do it.
Development doesn't work out. And you know who does cakes? It's Cheryl. She does beautiful cakes.
Really?
I have, so we are
trio
recording,
here.
but I will tell you the lady that's doing our cake, she does phenomenal cakes as well. It was actually her mom's business, and then she went into business with her mom, and then her mom unfortunately passed away, and so she has carried on the business. Her mom made my kids' first birthday cake. So her mom made Aiden's first birthday cake, and now she's making Aiden's wedding cake. And they're all their graduation cakes. They made them, like, I mean, they are my cake people, and they are so good. But that's good to know about Cheryl. I'm thinking for when we do directors meetings and things with NIATEP, I think we need to get Cheryl rolling on some of that.
Right. Definitely.
Maximize our talents here.
See, that's what happens.
Absolutely. Okay, so no more wedding talk or cakes. Go ahead, Natalie.
Okay.
Take us away.
So to tell you about why we're on the call today, about 3 weeks ago, several things happened. So I departed Tompkins County with the support of the Workforce Development Board. And coincidentally, or maybe not, that week, I got 4 requests for international partnerships and collaboration. So one of them is this idea that hails from the University of Siegen in Germany about collaborating on a STEM project that they've developed. And Sylvie, I did throw a few slides together. So do I have sharing ability?
Let me get that. Okay, hang on. Okay, I believe that you now have sharing.
Okay, here we go. Well, we think so. Okay, so, Katie, I don't know if you will remember this, but back in November 2019, we did, and when I say we, I mean a group from NIATEP and a group from Michigan Works combined into a delegation and went on a study visit to Germany.
Yeah, I was supposed to go.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
I couldn't because of the timing. I had another trip planned that I couldn't. It was already booked and paid for. Like, I couldn't change mine. So.
Okay, well, there's no better excuse than another trip to not go on a trip, right?
Yeah. With other people, I had other people that were counting on me too. So.
Well, I understand, and I'm going to show you a little bit about who we visited and the people we talked to and what we learned. This project is called, and I have literally cut and paste this from the project emails, the Authentic STEM Connect Us project from the University of Siegen. But some of the lead up and the background to this stems from the project I just mentioned. And this was called Apprenticeships, Policy and Practice with Impact. And that is when 12 of us traveled to the cities of Bonn and Cologne in the area called North Rhine-Westphalia, which incidentally is also a wine region. We had not planned that, but that turned out to work well for us too. Um, and the project was meant to be comprehensive. So we visited everyone from the national government to local employers, to some of the local education providers and academies. And we talked to lots of young people as well. So these are just some outtakes from some of the meetings that we had. The one on the upper right is with the German government. And I'm seeing you smile, Sylvie, because we had such a good time in these meetings. But the one sort of on the lower left here is on the Rhine River in Bonn, when we visited the Institute for Labor Economics. This is a list of the people that we visited. And as I said, we started with the German Federal Ministry. This was coordinated for us in partnership with the German Embassy in DC. We also had the educational piece. So we wanted to hear from people who do research on apprenticeships and programs for young people, sort of away from government. So that's why we went to the Institute for Labor Economics. They're known throughout Europe and actually here in the US as being sort of the authority on employment and skills programs throughout Europe. We met with the Cologne Chamber of Commerce, the Cologne District Government. We went to an educational academy. We met with the City of Cologne government. The difference there is the Cologne District Government is the region. The City of Cologne is the actual city. We went to Kölner Masse, which was a large sort of convention and events space, who also host Incubate, which was a digital hub, an incubator for startup businesses. We visited a machine engineering company who were just fantastic. And then I mentioned two hotels here, the Hotel Kron, which means crown, and the Hilton Hotel, which is where we stayed in both cities. And, you know, we met so many young people who had chosen to take apprenticeship or other youth employment programs as their route way. Just to give you an idea of numbers, the membership of the Cologne Chamber of Commerce collectively hosts almost 10,000 apprentices. So the main message that we came away from there with is that apprenticeships are more than a program. They're actually a culture and an investment. So when we talk about these sort of route ways into employment, we're talking about something that doesn't have to be sort of developed and negotiated and explained to businesses or employers. This is accepted and seen as an investment for all of the partners. And the partners tend to be understood as the young people, businesses, and the social and governmental participants as well. So those are government departments, but they also mention the social partners a lot, which are meant to be society. And some of the things that we observed, these are actually taken from the summary report, is that apprenticeships and the programs as they're designed in Germany remove barriers between non-credit and credit-bearing classwork. Oh, that's supposed to say bearing, not burning. And they also have a required minimum wage, which is higher than the national rate, which was really fascinating. And they're designed to promote lifelong learning. So I'm just going to step back for a moment and focus on these young people, particularly the ones on the left. The narrative from all three of these young professionals was that they chose apprenticeship because of the flexibility. So you don't even have to complete full apprenticeship at the time. You can divide your apprenticeship amongst educational providers and employers. There's so much flexibility that really encourages you to take on learning later in life. So I mean, some of the messages that we heard were just sort of like mind blowing. And those are some of the points that we brought back. So fast forward to a few weeks ago, I received an email from one of the visit organizers that was on the ground in Germany at the Cologne-Masse event space. He works for an entity called American House, which is sort of an offshoot of the American Embassy in Cologne. And they wanted to put me in touch with a professor from the University of Siegen. Now, this is on the right here, you see a lot of German, which I had to translate a few days ago. So that stands for Natural Science Technical Faculty. And that is the faculty at which Dr. Ingo Witzke presides at the University of Siegen. And he's the gentleman who has pulled together the program and the curriculum and is now looking for American partners. So he and I are scheduled to talk tomorrow morning. And I thought that perhaps we could use this call to figure out what kind of questions we might have for him. I think that you both have a copy of the original letter to me, hopefully, and the flyer and the presentation slides that they've pulled together. And I know that Sylvie has drawn up sort of a list of potential partners.
I didn't share that. I just sent that to you, Natalie.
Okay. So, we have the beginnings of a list of potential partners. As I understand the program, as they've written to me and just a few other emails with Professor Witzke, they're looking to take a team-based and problem-solving approach to any sort of challenge that is placed before STEM class or STEM curriculum students. And so what I'm starting to understand is they don't necessarily want to transfer curriculum from Germany to the United States, but they want to develop teams. And as I understand their models, some of their teams are supported by business. They're also interested in doing a combination of German and American teams. So not necessarily Germany versus the United States, but could we have some integrated teams that enter problem solving together? That's as much as I know at the moment. I did clip this from their flyer. These are the bullet points I have so far until tomorrow morning. We'll have to be mindful that they're 6 hours ahead of us. And so any calls or Zoom communication or WebEx would have to be done early in the morning, something we might want to consider. But I like that their plan is enriching problem-solving perspectives and figuring out how we do that together. The one thing that I will mention about these like German-American partnerships, because I have seen several of these throughout the US. I know that New Jersey is taking these up kind of like full force. So there are several universities that are trying these and some high schools in North Jersey that are piloting them as well. And what's interesting is that beyond sort of the cultural exchange that happens on a laptop or in the classroom, there are also opportunities for travel and to visit your counterparts in the other country. And when I think about that as a learning element, that's what really excites me. Because, we may be talking about or reaching out to young people who otherwise would not have an opportunity like this. And so that's what Montclair State University in Jersey is doing, and several of the high schools in that area are the recruitment place for these kinds of programs. And I've been to several events where the Workforce Development Board directors are supporting this. So Basically, Sylvia and I thought that perhaps that's where we should start. That's the information I have at the moment. Sylvia, I don't know if you would like to add anything.
No, I think you kind of gave a good oversight of this. I am also, excited about the possibility of, especially when you're looking at like teamwork and things like that. They've implemented, I mean, they're the global standard in that type of approach and things, just because of their apprenticeship programs, and also maybe even bring that aspect into the classroom, which otherwise probably would not have that opportunity. So for me, having had the experience that I had when I was able to go and learning what I learned and what I brought back and what we're doing now, because we have apprenticeship roundtable with different industries. We have one Thursday for the housekeeping. I mean, all this came about because of the trip. And so if I can, just me myself, can you imagine like a group of students forging networking across the pond? Also, like you said, Natalie, even having the opportunity to, come and go and visit, like their counterpart, their team in Germany, have the German team come here, be able to be part of that exchange, aside from the knowledge, it's that cultural thing too that's involved. So anyway, overall, so that's why I think it's very exciting.
Yeah, it is.
So-
And I keep remembering that, if I could just add this, at the front desk of our first hotel at the Hilton in Bonn, there was a young woman who was 18 years old and had interviewed for a position first. And she and her employer decided that she should take on an apprenticeship role. And I will never forget her saying that now she can work anywhere in the world because she decided that. Now that's not necessarily a STEM route, but she's on her way to the Hilton in Paris. That's just like the sort of opportunity that I think this opens up. So yeah, I appreciate that thought.
So I guess I get down to, the details. So as I look at, because I did look through everything that you guys sent, and in their presentation, when they do concrete next steps, they talk about the age range, and they're really looking at that high school level, like in our world, so that 14 to 18-year-old. So it's really, I'm thinking of this in terms of, high schools throughout Chautauqua County, which is a good thing. That's fine. It's just to wrap my head around kind of what the vision is. I'm assuming these are not paid apprenticeships, simply because of the nature of them, but I do know that Germany tends to pay apprentices, so I wasn't sure, like, this is more of a project-based experiential situation and less of an actual apprenticeship is the way I'm understanding it. That doesn't mean that we can't meld the two as things move forward or build it that way, but am I correct in kind of how I'm understanding it?
Yeah, because these are school-based and not work-based. So, and then school-based in Germany can be apprenticeship, but that's on like more like a cooperative where you go to school and then you go into the workplace and you come back and then
Right.
So for this particular project, and correct me if I'm wrong, Natalie, but this would be specifically STEM-based school projects with that age group, the high school age group.
So that is my hunch, and that is my plan to ask him about tomorrow morning. Yeah, because he does mention that the teams are supported by employers, and I'm honestly not clear on what that means.
Right.
I think
right.
sort of to complement that, another good question for him is, because they're approaching us, is there any kind of project budget for this?
Right.
And, we may be working in euros and dollars, but that's all transferable. So I'll make that inquiry as well.
Yeah.
And I think also, they give a pretty clear timeline, because it would kind of be based on a semester,
Yeah,
the
so
project
Sylvia and I,
itself.
yeah, Sylvia and I talked about this. We just figured that, you know, at this point in time, we couldn't necessarily get something started for the fall semester,
No.
but spring
No.
would look more viable.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So
to
we're
both of
looking
you.
at a project that would start probably mid to late January, because we have to keep in mind Regents exams and things like that in New York State. Then those
Yep.
take place at the end of January. So I'm actually thinking it would probably be closer to a February start.
Okay,
Just because I know that last week in January, I want to say, is literally, it's all Regents. You kind of lose the kids. And
yeah,
then you do have a week off. There is a week break in
Like
February.
President's Week, yeah. Most
Yeah.
schools anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, still, you could basically get so basically they'd have February, March, April, and I would say part of May, but I don't even know if you could count on May, because Regents exams start early June.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then plus the
And so
whole
they're doing a ton of,
preparation and all that good stuff as well.
yeah.
But
okay.
So, I mean, I'm
So
just
we're-
trying to think, like, again, I'm going to kind of, like, logistically, you know, how would I, number one, sell this to my school districts? And then number two, do the projects that they're envisioning in Germany, can they fit in like a 3-month time frame? Like, does that work? And if not, what is the typical time frame that they're seeing in a project?
the other thing too, Natalie, you might ask them is that, you know, depending on the schools, if you're looking more at a BOCES versus like a regular type of classroom and things like that. And if that's the
Yeah.
case, how does that work into the BOCES program? Because if that can be built in as part of their program, well, then, you know, then you're not like having to carve out time specific to the project. It can kind of be part of the whole curriculum for the class itself. So, you know, I'm not really sure how that would work, but, you know, and how willing the schools would be to kind of adapt to that. But you know what? I think they're at this point, they're looking at different out of the box thinking and approaches, and that could be something that kind of meets that.
Yes.
Well, and I think that it's important. I like how they talk about it as like clubs, because I almost feel like it's an extracurricular club. But I will say this, in Chautauqua County, and I would guess that it's similar in North Country, because we're so rural, and to be perfectly honest, and this is just a Katie Geis opinion, this is not my organization's opinion, it is Katie Geis's opinion, we have 18 school districts in my large geographically, but tiny as far as population goes. And that is way too many. And my point of describing it is that a school can have great interest in this, and you build it as a club, which I think would be an easier sell, because it's going to be hard for them to carve out time during the school day. Not impossible, depending on the district, but you're pulling from the same kids are doing all these things, you know? And so you've got a kid that wants to be in the musical, they're not going to do this instead of being the spring musical. Do you know what I mean? And so it's being really cognizant of, yes, a club is probably the way to go, but how you structure that club and what you're competing with, because there's only so many kids.
And then also
Okay,
with the time change too, that might be, I mean, do they meet at 6:30 in the morning?
That's what I was
Their
just wondering.
lunchtime, you know, or, you know, anyway, but yeah, and Michigan is doing it. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can go back to them and say, hey, how did you implement it in your school? And I know for us here in the North Country, I think the BOCES are the way to go, because instead of 18 school district, whatever, I only have like 2 BOCES in our area. And then, you know, with Gretchen, that brings another BOCES within, you know, and then if Cheryl wants to participate, so that would bring a number of.
I think in theory you are right on, and maybe my BOCES is a little different. Well, first of all, my BOCES, I only have one, but I'm very close to another one in Erie County. But the issue with BOCES is and it's not okay that this is the situation, but there's such a stigma on BOCES. And so you're not going to be I think BOCES should be included, but I also think school districts, because I think that if you go one way or the other, you're limiting access to a full group
Yeah.
of potential students.
Yeah.
And I'm not okay with that either, you know, like, I mean, I'm just not.
But I mean, even to add to that, Katie, we all know that school districts don't want to send their kids to BOCES because it costs them. So
money.
the less they go, the more money they keep, which is
Right.
it shouldn't even be, but anyway, that's another issue. But the thing is you're right in that respect. It's not just the BOCES kids with that stigma, oh, it's a BOCES kid, but it's also the fact that not everyone who would benefit from BOCES goes because they're considered to be more university track, or they don't want to send more than X just because of the fact that it costs them.
Right. What about do you have a PTAC?
We do, but it's healthcare and it's in Malone. And this might be actually their last year.
Because our PTAC is manufacturing based and it's connected to Jamestown Community College. So when they finish, they end up with their Regents diploma. In 5 years, they get their Regents diploma and they get their associate's degree. And they are manufacturing. Like, that might be in my area, that might be the place to start. Because
how far along are they in the PTAC process? Because I think the ones that we have just concluded. We had one manufacturing in Peru. Well, I mean, it was for the whole region, but the thing is, I think that might be over and done with now.
I think we're in, like, I want to say like the 4th year, but I thought they had funding for at least 7 years.
It could be. Ours started, the year I joined 6 years ago was when they started. And actually I'm in my 7th year. So, and it was for a 6-year. So I have a feeling they probably are done with the PTAC. It was very, very strong at the beginning and it kind of went on I think it was that first funding stream that didn't include BOCES as part of it, which really, and then they changed it, and then now it's a little bit more viable. But anyway, it had its own challenge.
Well, BOCES actually, it falls under BOCES for us. BOCES is running it.
Malone is BOCES ran, but before the first round, whenever they came out, they specifically did not include BOCES into it. Which I know. So, but then they had to step in.
That could be a place to pilot it and then grow it. But again, I mean, I'm more than willing. The superintendent of BOCES, who basically oversees, you know, all 18 of my districts. And I know him very, very well. And we also have in our county, it's called the Chautauqua County Partnership for Economic Growth. And there's multiple different work groups, and one of them is a work readiness work group. And I'm the co-chair along with the president of our community college. And the superintendent of BOCES sits on that. And so that might be a group that I could bring the concept to first, with more details, of course, and start to talk about how we as a group think that we could potentially approach this. And, you know, I think PTAC makes sense to me, but at the same time, I'm more than happy to put it out to all the districts and then see who jumps on it.
Yeah, because I know from our end here, I know there's at least 2, if not more, schools that would probably be very innovative in jumping on that. Some, it's like anything else, you know, it depends on the superintendent and the willingness to kind of go outside the box and things. But for sure, there's 2 in Clinton County. And like you said, working with the BOCES and trying to identify other schools, or even just give everyone the opportunity to participate and see who is interested, depending on the type of projects we want to kind of, you know, bring forward for them.
Well, I guess that's my other question, because the only project that they talk about is the automotive one, which again, it sounds like a great project. Is that the business that's going to continue to do this and be the place? My understanding was yes. Is that correct, Natalie?
I have that on my list of questions as well.
We
So
don't
I
have
think,
automotive. I mean, we do because we've got the busing and then we've got the transportation, aeronautics and blah, 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 but specific to car manufacturing, no.
okay, that's good to know. So with all this jumping happening, let me jump in and make sure I've heard a few things correctly. So,
And I don't want to press things, but I have to be at noon. I have a luncheon, so I just want to,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah.
So I think our first point is that we're talking about a February through mid-May time. Does that make sense? So that won't overlap with any kind of finals or big testing events. So February to mid-May provisionally. Okay. And then we've sort of touched on BOCES, regular classroom and the club idea. And I think a lot of that is sort of based on geography. And I really do hear your point, Katie, that you don't want to try to have to sell this 18 different times, right? I think is what you're saying.
Yeah,
So if
yeah.
there's some sort of club that brings students together, you know, either before or after hours.
Let me ask you this, because, you know, with the pandemic, we discovered Zoom, right? Could we do this with a cluster of students from one school district and another one and, you know, and then kind of like have the platform of Zoom bring them together, like kind of like what we have with our meetings. It's like, okay, next time we get together, you do this, this, and this, I'll do that, that, and that. And then is that how we envision that with the same thing with the Germans?
That's one kind of model. And I anticipate that they'll be doing something like that in order to communicate with us. So if they're planning a digital element, yeah, we could.
And I'm wondering too, if we shouldn't reach out to Michigan and see how they're doing it too. Are they doing?
I definitely think we should.
Or just concentrating on the ones that want to participate, do one as a pilot project and then try to see if they're gonna bring more on board as time goes by. I mean, those are.
Okay.
Is Luann, is she in charge of that in Michigan? Who's leading the way?
You know, I don't know. I haven't talked to the Michigan folks in quite some time, but I can reach out to her and find out.
She
I'll see
even
what they're
knows.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like, let's not recreate the wheel. Like if they've had lessons learned, like something that didn't work, like let's learn from Michigan and, you know, take the things that seem to be working well and let's try that first. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
hopefully they've maybe stumbled a little, but we can avoid those stumbles.
Yeah, if they have something in place, we'll find out. Okay.
Yeah,
But I
because
agree with you, Sylvie. I think it should be, you know, if it's going to be, you know, virtual based, because it has to be, because you're working with your counterparts in Germany. Why can't it be that it's virtual based to work with the school district that's 20 minutes away? In my opinion,
like across the state, it could be Chautauqua, you know, BOCES students with North Country, BOCES with, you know, Dutchess. It could be that
with
too.
Chautauqua, yeah, it could be, yeah.
Yeah, and have one team from New York State that could be brought up from different regions, depending on the interest level and things like that.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. So we can.
Yeah, why can't it be just in New York State? Yeah.
Because then we can get the New York State students together for sure, because that's easy.
Yeah.
And even if German, you know, if because especially with the travel and stuff, but we could certainly host like some kind of get together with all the students at one point.
Yep.
Yeah.
I bet we could do something in like the middle of the state, like in Syracuse, at Syracuse University with their science department, you know, like I think we could really, like there could be something really cool there too.
And I bet they would love that.
Yeah, wouldn't that be fun if we had sort of a university education partner to support us?
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So see how Michigan set it up? I mean, it could be just one region, but
yeah, because they only mentioned Lansing
yeah.
that I saw.
I saw that. Yep.
Yeah. And they only mentioned one region in Germany, whatever, you know, that's where we were, right? In that area.
That North Rhine, Westphalia, This University of Siegen is sort of southeast from Bonn. So we didn't go south of Bonn. We went north to Cologne. So I'll find out a little more about the region too.
Yeah,
I do know that that area in Germany is probably the highest manufacturing center of all of the states. Yeah. And so I'll ask about that, and I'll reach out to our Michigan Works friends. And can you think of any other questions you would want me to ask just as an initial contact point? Numbers of participants.
Yeah, what would be ideal to them, or how many are in the current model that they're running, like with Michigan, like how many in Michigan, how many in Germany? So it's kind of like would give us a target.
Okay.
That's a great question. How are, maybe this is a Michigan question, but maybe it's a Germany question too. Like, how do they staff, like moderating the group in Germany and in Michigan? Like, is it a teacher that needs to be assigned? You know, and what would their role be, and what's the expectation? Because again, we've got unionized teachers, and so.
And can you imagine if we do decide to do a team for the whole state, how that's going to work out? But you know what? There's a will, there's a way, right?
That's where workforce development, that's where we can get really innovative, and maybe it's one of our staff that does it, but you've got to have points of contact at all those different places, making sure, you know, the kids are safe, that they're getting to wherever it is that they're going to meet from. And actually, I don't think it would be a bad thing to have them meet, not at one of the schools, but at a career center.
That's true.
So, you know, you have a group that's, Zooming in a room from a career center. And
that's a good idea, because then that gets them to discover us too and what we do.
Exactly. But I still think that the basic questions are like, what kind of numbers are we looking at? What kind of volume?
Yeah, we're talking about basic nuts and bolts first, aren't we? Okay.
Yeah, because we've already expanded the program quite a bit, Sylvie and I over here.
Yeah, well, sorry.
The whole
They're
state.
just ideas. You know, they're just ideas and logistics, and we can kind of like come back to the focus eventually. And then depending on who else is interested too, there might be some other ideas and stuff. But I'm gonna have to go like in a couple of minutes.
Nope. Anything else from us, Natalie?
No, thank you. I'm feeling your world vision. So what I'll do is I'll talk with Professor Witzke, whose first name is Ingo. I'm sure I called him Igor once or twice, so I'm gonna have to butter him up a little bit. But why don't I email you with the key points of what he says and our conversation, and we'll decide where to go from there.
Perfect.
Okay.
Sounds great.
This is really cool.
Great. Thank you. Have some schnitzel for dinner.
Yeah, well, you know, I want to be a chaperone on that trip.
Yeah, I'll be a chaperone. This time we just have to plan it when I don't have something else planned. And I'll have the strudel.
We did meet with an apprentice who was learning to be sort of like an expert in wine. And so she had been placed in like hotels throughout the wine region and was just fascinating. Do you remember her, Sylvie?
Well, yeah, because
on her last day.
They served, Katie, just so you know, Melinda and I had gone into the vineyards in the little village because the whole place was shut down. So there was not really, so we're like, oh, we'll just go and climb up the hill and go up and I saw this little vineyard with the sign, and they served the wine at dinner. So I still have a bottle at home. I haven't drank that bottle. So I'm hoping it's still good, but I'm sure it is. It's aging well.
I'm sure it is.
And but anyway, so yeah, that was really cool. I was like, oh my God, we were in that vineyard. So yeah.
That's so awesome.
Cool. Well, okay, Katie, we'll be toasting to you. Have a great time if we don't see you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we will.
Yay.
Finally.
Okay.
I
will.
Thanks,
Thank you. I'll
everyone.
email you. I appreciate your time this morning.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks for
Exciting.
joining, and I'll send the recording to the others.
Great.
Okay,
Thank
perfect.
Bye.
Thanks.
you. See
Bye.
you soon. Bye.